Hey guys, hoping all is well with everyone. So in this video we're going to be continuing the read-along of The Secret Zoo, Riddles, and Danger by Brian Chick. And the last time we finished off we completed Chapter 4, so we'll be starting with Chapter 5 today. And as always, please feel free to follow along and I'll be showing you any pictures that we come across. Chapter 5, The Lookout from Fort Scout. "Anyone see anything?" Ella whispered. The scouts stood in their pajamas at the window in the Newicki kitchen, staring out at Fort Scout. It was almost midnight, and Noah's parents had been asleep for at least 2 hours. The backyard was so dark that Noah could only faintly see Fort Scout, a dim rectangle caught in the limbs of the distant oak tree. "Nuh-uh," said Noah. After giving permission earlier that day for the secret society to post a descender in their tree fort, the scouts had decided on a sleepover at Noah and Megan's house. They all wanted to be near the incredible event taking place in Fort Scout, an animal and a teenager from another world keeping watch over the east wall of the zoo. "Me neither," said Richie. He wore footed pajamas, and even indoors had on his winter hat with the bushy pom-pom. Simulating a yawn, he stretched his arms above his head and added, "It sure is getting late. Well, better hit the sack, I guess." Ignoring Richie, Ella asked the other two, "You think they're even out there?" Megan and Noah shrugged. Ella hoisted her rear end onto the counter and peered out the window, cupping her hands around her eyes to reduce the glare of the kitchen lights. "Anything?" Noah asked. "No way. Too dark." They continued to stare out. After a few minutes, Megan had the courage to say what Noah was thinking. "Let's go out there." They shared a glance, silently wondering if this was possible. Richie waved his hand at them, saying, "I'm thinking that's not such a good idea. I'm sure Mrs. Newicki would just love to wake up and find us running around the yard in our PJs. "She won't," said Noah. "Besides, if she does, we'll just tell her that Megan lost her glasses in Fort Scout again." The three scouts stared at Richie, whose eyes darted nervously among them. "I think I see what's going on here. All the stress, it has Play-Doh'd your brains." The others said nothing. "Okay," said Richie. "Let's disregard our emotions." His posture stiffened as he began to intellectualize. "Let's regard this from a logical standpoint. Let's assume—" But the three scouts were already at the back door, slipping on their hats and jackets and stepping into their shoes. Within seconds, they were fully dressed, and Megan eased open the back door, trying to quiet the squeal of the hinges. Richie whispered angrily, "Guys, don't be stupid." Ignoring him, the other scouts exited. They were halfway to the tree when Richie finally gave up and rushed after them, calling in a hoarse whisper for his friends to wait up. Outside, it was winter cold. The wind ushered clouds across the sky. Thick and billowy, they seemed strong enough to catch falling stars. A bit of snow colored the grass. The four friends raced up to the ladder to Fort Scout, and Noah pushed open the door, revealing not two, but 3 figures huddled near the window. Podgy, Marlow, and Hannah. Hannah was one of the 4 descenders assigned to perimeter patrol. She had wild blonde hair with red bangs and was endlessly chewing gum. She wore magical platform boots that allowed her to jump like a puma, her descender power. Podgy and Hannah were on the floor, and Marlo was perched on the window frame. The scouts rushed inside and gathered around the secret citizens, taking seats on the cold wooden planks. Marlo dove through the air and found his usual perch on Noah's shoulder. Hannah's jaw dropped open. "What are you doing out here?" "We just wanted to see how things are going," Megan explained. "And get us spotted?" Noah reassured her. "My parents are asleep, and we could barely see Fort Scout from the window anyway." Megan said, "We'll only stay for a little bit. We promise." "If Sam knew you guys were already—" Hannah cut herself short, her stare fixed on Richie's feet. "Are those footsie pajamas?" Richie smiled. "Yepers." Hannah shook her head. "Great. The fate of the world rests on a kid who dressed like an infant." Frowning, she gazed around at the scouts. "You can stay a half hour, not a second more." "Awesome," said Ella. Looking at Podgy, Megan asked, "How did he get in here?" Hannah said, His wings work now, remember? She gestured out the tree fort. And the zoo's right there. All he had to do was get over the wall. The stairs to the fort made the rest easy. Noah peered out. From 25 feet high, he could see easily over the concrete wall, which skirted his property line and ran along his neighbor's yard to finally disappear behind the trees. The otherworldly zoo landscape, dimly lit by scattered lamps, was especially wondrous at night. Silhouettes of concrete mountainsides rose against a starry backdrop, and great dome roofs loomed. Naked tree branches reached skyward as if trying to cover themselves with the falling moonlight. Peering out to the window next to Noah, Megan said, "With the leaves off the trees, you can see so many exhibits." She was right. Noah quickly counted 30. Not far from them was a sprawl of multi-purpose igloos and Arctic town. In the distance rose the Forest of Flight, Penguin Palace, and Metropolis. In Rhinorama, Little Bighorn, draped in darkness, ambled along the exhibit's grassy perimeter. Everyone became quiet. Time passed. The view, tranquil and familiar, softened Noah's mood. He glanced at the others, Richie with his footed pajamas, Ella with her fluffy pink earmuffs, Megan with her drooping pigtails. Being with them in the tree fort, he suddenly felt a welcome distance from the rest of the world. He was with his best friends, the family beyond his own. Richie yanked him out of his feelings, saying, "Guys, did you see? I saw it," said Ella. "Something's out there." "Just police monkeys," Hannah calmly said. "On patrol." Noah snatched up a pair of binoculars. 2 houses down, the limbs of a tree shifted, then a small branch broke off and dropped to the ground. 2 monkeys became visible. They leaped and swung through the branches, making their way to the house. They dropped down on the roof, where they scurried to a gabled peak and ducked into the shadows of a chimney. Megan looked at Noah. "See?" she said. "Told you." "Huh?" "Monkeys on the rooftops," Megan said. "When all of this started, I told you, and you didn't believe me." "Oh," Noah said. "Yeah. Sorry about that." The scouts fell silent and watched the rooftop. The monkeys sat facing the zoo, their backs against the chimney. Behind them, a plume of colorless smoke spilled skyward. Every so often, a monkey swung its head to scan the surroundings. "Look at them," said Ella. "It's just crazy." Seconds later, the monkeys sprang to their feet and ran in the opposite direction of the scouts. They jumped off the roof, sailed through the air, then touched down on the next house, where they ran to its gabled peak and once again tucked themselves into the cover of a chimney. They scanned the landscape for a few minutes before standing, running to the edge of the house, and pitching themselves into the air once more. They landed on the next rooftop and headed across it, their figures dissolving into the darkness. The scouts turned to Hannah with blank expressions. She brushed back her wild red bangs and said, "No biggie, they're just doing what they're supposed to." The 4 friends shrewd a bewildered look and then returned their attention to the zoo. For the next 15 minutes, nothing unusual happened. Occasional guards strolled the grounds, and animals paced their yards, making Noah remember something Tamarin had said during their first cross-training. The secret zoo has 2 lines of defense, one of humans and one of animals. Certainly those 2 lines were what the scouts were seeing now. Just as Noah was about to ask his friends if they wanted to go back into the house, a bat darted past, its wings slicing through the darkness. "You guys see that?" Richie asked. "The bat. It was patrolling." "How do you know it wasn't just an ordinary bat?" Ella asked. "Ordinary bats hibernate this time of year," Richie answered. "Again, I present the rewards of staying awake in class." Ella twisted her face and stared hard at her friend. "Keep it up, and I'll present my fist." A second bat appeared, then another, and another, each paced perhaps 30 feet behind the previous one. Unlike the smooth, graceful sweeps with which most birds flew, the bats jerked across the sky, zigzagging from one point to the next. They seemed to be on parade, the moon and the stars their only audience. The scouts watched, their faces turned upward. Marlo sidestepped back and forth across Noah's shoulder. his beady eyes fixed on the bats. Podgy watched too. As many as 20 bats darted past through the sky, settled at only one movement again became the steady, wind-driven passage of the clouds. The scouts turned back to the zoo. A few minutes went by. Noah remembered the tarsiers and peered into the neighborhood trees. "I don't see any tarsiers," he said. "That's why this whole thing works," Hannah answered. Her weighty tone suggested she was tiring of the scouts' questions and remarks. Sensing this, Noah told his friends they should probably go. As he turned to Podgy, Marlo jumped from his shoulder and landed on the window. "See you later, Podge," said Noah. In acknowledgement, Podgy flapped his flippers once. Noah turned to Hannah, who was crouched beside the window. She had faint streaks of moonlight in her wild hair. "See you," he said. Hannah nodded. "Don't wake up your mom." The scouts rode the slide to the ground. They quickly crossed the backyard and slipped into the house, where Noah's parents slept, oblivious to the threats around them. In the living room, the scouts squirmed into their sleeping bags. They closed their eyes and no one spoke. They all knew they needed their sleep if they were going to protect their neighborhood from the mounting dangers of the secret zoo. Chapter 6. An Instant Marlow. After dinner on Sunday, the scouts lounged in their tree fort. On the floor, Megan and Ella were stretched out on their backs, their heads resting in their hands. Richie was at the table, probing an electrical remains of a long-dead gadget, his hopes set on resurrecting it. Noah was staring out the window toward the zoo. As evening began to dim the day, a tiny bluebird streaked through the window and touched down on Noah's shoulder. "Marlow!" Richie called out. The scouts jumped to attention. Noah took a seat on the floor, and his friends huddled near him. In Marlow's beak was a folded slip of paper, a message from someone in the secret society, likely Mr. Darby. The scouts called these messages IMs, instant Marlows. Noah plucked the note from Marlow's beak, opened it, then read it aloud. "Dearest Scouts, due to the recent Sasquatch sighting outside the inner borders of the Clarksville Zoo, Tank and I would like to divert the focus of your cross-training to the Grottos. Please reply if you can meet Tank and Butterfly Nets tomorrow after school. More will be explained then. Best wishes, Mr. Darby." "The Grottos?" Megan said. "Things sure have changed, huh?" The other scouts knew what she was referring to. Up to this point, the four of them had been warned to keep out of the Grottos, to use only tunnels that opened directly to the secret zoo. Noah had once ventured into the Grottos, got lost in the exhibits, and had been nearly spotted by zoo visitors. The Descenders had been furious. "Yep," Ella said. "Looks like they might be rethinking their defense strategy. Guess that happens once Sasquatches start shopping in your gift shops." Noah snatched a pen from Richie's pocket, flattened the letter against the floor, and wrote, "We'll be there." He folded the paper back into a tiny square, then held it up to Marlow, who plucked it free from a peck of his beak. The kingfisher dove in the air and flashed out of sight. They traded glances, each trying to read the emotions coded in another's stares. "The Grottos?" asked Ella. "The Grottos," answered Noah. "Here we go," said Megan. "Oh boy," Richie said. Chapter 7. Exploring the Grottos. After school on Monday, the scouts stood at their entrance to Butterfly Nets beside the "Closed for Construction" sign. Noah pulled the magic key from his pocket. He looked left, then right, then jabbed the key at the slot in the door. The lock clicked open, and one by one the scouts slipped inside. They were greeted by Tank. The mountainous man stood with his arms crossed, his bald head gleaming. His chest bulged out like the shells of two turtles. "What's up?" Tank asked. He first fist-tapped the scouts, then said to Noah, "Lead the way, bub. You know how to get into the Grottos from here." Noah blushed with shame. Tank was referring to how Noah had sneaked into the Grottos from this exhibit not too long ago. Though Noah doubted Tank was holding a grudge against him, he couldn't help feel a little bit guilty. Butterfly Nets was a long glass house with a gabled rooftop, an open exhibit. It was full of trees, plants, streams, and noisy waterfalls. Hundreds of butterflies flitted from spot to spot, flashing color onto the surroundings. Mesh rope was draped all around to look like large nets. Noah walked down the visitor path, slipped under a railing, then ventured into the restricted part of the exhibit, ducking branches and crossing streams. He led the group around a fabricated rock formation to a hidden spot. A narrow flight of stairs descended into the ground. The crossers took them. The dark staircase landed open in one direction. When Noah stepped that way, a series of lights triggered on. Richie yelped, and Ella hushed him. A short tunnel headed straight for 10 feet and then stopped at 2 branches, one left and one right. The group moved forward and stared down both passages. As much as 50 feet long, each had 5 or 6 new branches, mouths to new tunnels. The entrances were cloaked with velvet curtains. "Is this it?" Ella asked. "Part of it," Tank replied. "But the grottos, they're big." He squeezed through the 4 of them and headed down the branch to the right. "This way." Old bricks shaped the walls and arched ceiling. Flecks of mortar peppered the edges of the dirt floor. Above each curtain was a gold plate with words engraved upon it. The first plate read Alata Hippopotami, the second Ostrich Island. Tank said, "Take a seat for a sec. I'm about to school you in the grottos." The scouts dropped to their bottoms and leaned back against the cool wall. Sliding his palms together, Tank began to slowly pace in front of the scouts, assuming the traditional posture of a lecturer quite naturally. "The grottos are nothing but a bunch of ordinary tunnels running beneath the Clarksville Zoo. They're on the fringes of the secret zoo, but they're most certainly not in it. The grottos have gateways." Tank touched the curtain behind them. "Portals. They're magical, as you know. Sometimes they connect to sectors in the secret zoo. Sometimes they connect to places in the Clarksville Zoo. Exhibits and other spots. Spots like this." Tank tapped his knuckles against the cold gold plate above the curtain beside him. It read, "Grottos, east, northeast. Anyone know how to read a compass?" When Richie stabbed his arm into the air, Tank asked, "Tell me what ENE stands for." "East, northeast," Richie said. Tank winked. "You got it. A compass has 4 cardinal points, north, south, east, and west. In the middle of 2 cardinal points are intercardinal points, northeast, southeast, places like that. And then you have secondary intercardinal points, north, northeast, west, southeast. Makes for a total of 16 points. And makes me glad we're upgraded compasses to satellites," Ella added. "This tunnel," Tank again touched the plate with that red Grottos ENE. "This connects to the east-northeast end of the grottos." "That's right by my house," Noah said. "Yup, pretty close. And from there you can gate to other ends of the grottos, places in the Clarksville Zoo, and sectors in the secret zoo." Ella said, "What's up with all these crazy tunnels? I mean, why not just have straight drops to the secret zoo and get around places in the Clarksville Zoo from above ground?" "Not fast enough," Tank said, "and too visible to outsiders." "But, hold on, let me explain. In the first years of the Clarksville Zoo, we had nothing but straight drops to the secret zoo. The grottos, they didn't exist. But once DeGraff breached our borders, we started protecting them. Animals watched over the portals in their exhibits. The security guards patrolled the Clarksville Zoo grounds. Most important, we assembled the first team of human crossers. For a while, it was enough to put the secret citizens at ease. But then the Sasquatch Rebellion went down. Hundreds were killed. Parts of the city of species were destroyed. Things fell apart for us. Attitudes changed. Focus was lost, and fear became our government. The Descenders were born, and they quickly emerged as our army. Most were descendants of people killed in the attack. They engineered a way to make the magic into themselves, then to our borders. The first tunnels in the grottos were created, and they had but one purpose, to quickly move the Descenders to different points in the 2 zoos." It pained Noah to hear how violence had helped shape this marvel of the secret zoo. Using the grottos, the Descenders can respond to an attack in the secret zoo, or a sighting of DeGraff in the Clarksville Zoo within minutes, sometimes seconds. To the scout's left, the bottom of the curtain suddenly flapped open. Dozens of meerkats charged into the grottos. They ran over and under the scout's legs. then disappeared through another curtain at the far end of the tunnel. "Like those guys?" Richie asked. "Pretty much," said Tank. Ella pointed to where the meerkats had gone, saying, "You know your life has hit a record for weirdness when something like that seems perfectly normal." Richie swung his stare back to Tank and said, "How did they build the grottos?" "First, they developed a layout that made sense. Then everyone went to work. Old-fashioned muscle created the tunnels. The brothers created the portals." Noah looked around him at the stone walls and velvet curtains. He thought of the brothers Tank had mentioned, Bhanu, Kavi, and Vishal, 3 identical brothers from India, born to different mothers. When joined together, they could work magic, and if it had been their magic that had helped create the secret zoo. "Well," Tank added, "the brothers created most of the portals anyway." "Most?" Noah said. "What do you mean by that?" Tank paused and seemed to look inward. Finally he said, "Before the grottos could be completed, one of the brothers died. Kavi. Old age got him. We buried him in one of the sectors. Without Kavi, the magic of surviving brothers weakened. The farther the two of them were from their brother's gravesite, the weaker their magic was. Vishal died several years later, another natural death. The secret society buried him close to his brother. Bhanu's magic became weaker than ever. He could barely do anything unless he was near his brother's graves. Finally, a few years later, age got the best of Bhanu. We buried him in the same sector as his brothers. And that was that." Ella said, "Why do I have a feeling that something bad happened?" "Something did," Tank said. "The portals stopped working." "All of them?" "Not from the cities of species to the sectors, just from the sectors to the outside world. The ones that require more magic." "But obviously you guys fixed it," Megan said. "How?" "An act of desperation. When the brothers were alive, their magic only worked when they were together. Wondering if the same was true in their death, we unburied them and put them in a single casket. When we did, the portals to your world started working again." "The cemetery sector," Noah said in a hushed voice. He knew that the cemetery sector was one of the forbidden 5 sectors that were off limits to all except a select few. "That's where they were buried, right?" Tank nodded. "Cool," Ella said. "Can we check it out?" "Not a chance," Tank shot back. "That place, it's filled with too much magic. It wouldn't be safe. The cemetery sector is..." Tank clearly couldn't find the right words. "Let's just say it's like nothing you've ever seen." The scouts thought about this. After a bit, Noah said, "When we first found the secret zoo, Mr. Darby told us the magic was still alive, and that you guys still have it. Use it." Tank nodded. "That's where our magical scientists come in. For years, they've been working in the cemetery sector, studying the magic and discovering ways to use it. They've gotten pretty good at it. They can't create sectors, but they can modify them." "The secret water park," Megan said. "It's inside a water tower in the City of Species. I remember Hannah telling us that it was the result of a consolidation project. Something to open up space in one of the sectors." "Yep," Tank said. "Our scientists did that. Nice job, huh?" "I want to hang out with these scientist dudes," Ella said. Then her stare went blank as she wandered off into her own thoughts. "Yeah, I bet he could really do some wicked stuff." Tank switched the conversation back, saying, "There's a science and a structure to the magic. A math. Once the scientists found this logic, they went to work creating portals. They did most of their testing in Kangaroo Campground. You guys just cross-trained there, so you know what I'm talking about." The scouts nodded enthusiastically. "The scientists created a ton of minor portals in the grottos, and even though they're good with the magic, they're still not Bhanu and his brothers. Some of the portals in the grottos are..." Tank's voice trailed off as he tried to select the right words. "A bit less than perfect." "Uh-oh," Richie said. "What do you mean by that?" "Sometimes they don't portal to the right spots. and sometimes they don't portal at all. Other times, Tank's voice trailed off again, other times crossers don't make it through. The scouts flinched. Richie clutched his chest. What happens to them? Ella asked. Tank shook his head, looking sad. We don't know. They disappear. For good. We call it going amiss. Oh, nice, Ella said. And a few days ago, Noah was running through them like they're the best part of a funhouse. Tank shrugged his shoulders. We told you guys to stay out of the grottos. But you guys know which portals are dangerous, right? Tank stayed silent for what seemed a very long time. We know some that are. You know some? Some? Richie barked. Didn't you guys pay attention to which ones the scientists created? With some shame in his voice, Tank said, What can I say? Details sometimes get lost in history. Great, Ella said. Nice record keeping, guys. Noah asked, How often do people go amiss? Almost never, Tank said. Try not to sweat it. You have a better chance of getting struck by lightning. The scouts slowly shook their heads. As always, the story of the secret zoo was almost too much to believe. Noah turned to his friends. Ella's jaw was open, and Richie's fingertips were pressed to the sides of his head. Megan's eyes were almost as big as the lenses in her glasses. Tank, Noah said, something doesn't make sense. What's that, bub? If Bhanu and his brothers died of old age, why didn't DeGraff? Tank frowned. He's not human anymore. Not the way his brothers were. Something happened to him on the day he used the magic to draw the shadows into himself. Some say he's nothing but a stark swarm of energy. Others say he's part of a shadow and part of human. Others admit they have no idea what he is. Most don't believe he exists anymore. They figure he died along with his brothers. They see him as a legend, a myth. They're always asking if he's still alive, why he hasn't attacked the Clarksville Zoo after so many years. The scouts traded uneasy glances. Okay, Tank said with some finality. He turned down the curtain and pulled one side open. You guys ready to explore? Yeah, Ella said, just not so ready to go amiss. Tank grinned and said, Try not to think about it. Like I said, it almost never happens. As the scouts followed the big man through the portal marked Grottos E&E, east-northeast, Noah hoped not to end up in some strange and forgotten place beyond the world of the secret zoo. And I'll stop the video there, ending chapter 7. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and as always, please take good care of yourselves, and thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in our next video of the Secret Zoo Riddles in Danger, where we'll be continuing with chapter 8. Take good care, guys, and see you soon. Bye.